what about Putin? Did he took NATO seriously enough?
He thought, this is one of Putin's real miscalculations at the start of the war, he will have looked at NATO and thought NATO is weak. He'd have seen the collapse of the NATO mission in Afghanistan in 2021 in chaos. He'd have seen the reduction in defense spending across NATO for the last 2 decades. He'll have seen the British defense estimate and the defense review of 2010, which said there is no existential threat to these islands. He'll have seen the contempt with which Trump treated NATO allies and partners. He'll have seen the red line Obama laid down in 2013 in Syria being wiped out of the way. He'll have assumed NATO was going to be weak, and he's got it wrong.
All right, we had the signals, like Mr. Trump during his election campaign saying that NATO is obsolete. We had Mr. Macron criticizing NATO for the brain death. And at least in case of Trump, it resulted with increased defense spending of the most countries.
Well, has it? Has it? I wonder.
At least in Poland.
I mean, I think Poland, yes. I mean, don't get me wrong. I deplore President Trump 100%. But the one thing he was right about, but he wasn't alone here. Every American president and every Secretary of State for Defense has been saying this for some time, that Europe has to step up to the mark in terms of defense spending. Only a small number of European nations, Poland included, Britain included, are spending more than 2% of GDP on defense. A lot of NATO nations are still not spending 2% of GDP on defense. Germany is not, France is not. So there's a long way to go before NATO nations, European member states of NATO, are all spending enough on defense. Actually, 2% is the floor, not the ceiling. It should be more like 3-4% being spent on defense.
As it is in the United States at the moment.
Absolutely.
To maintain security for the citizens of NATO. So what have you learned from the war in Ukraine?
Well, number one, how brilliant and how courageous and how well the Ukrainians have done.
So the manhood values are still important.
The spirit, energy, courage, determination, agility, genius of every Ukrainian man and woman, and their courage and the way they behaved is admirable. Ukraine is not going to lose this war. Ukraine is going to achieve victory.
That's the condition number one. You want to have a will to object to the attacker.
The moral is to the physical as 3 is to 1, said Napoleon,
right.
And he was absolutely right. Second one is how the Russians are not 10 feet tall. The Russians can be defeated. The Russians have demonstrated extraordinary, unprofessional, bad military behavior. I mean, yes, they're brutal, they're destructive, but they're not clever.